Three female entrepreneurs turned besties share on life, business, and the journey through the mess. Join their community with every new episode for connection, education, a few laughs, and the hype energy like a bathroom full of drunk girls at a bar. It's okay.
We're your friends now.
Hello, it's Biz.
Hey, it's Katie.
And it is Ashleigh. Welcome to We're Your Friends Now. We are super stoked for this week's episode. Last week, we talked about goals and goal setting. This week, we're going to kind of play off of that a little bit to talk about how do you show up even when it feels like you are failing. So we are going to dive into that pretty soon. But first, I want to know how your guys' weeks have been. Katie, what is a high from the week? How are you?
Good. So we got a ton of snow up here. It started last week and we had like a little bit one day and then all of a sudden we got a ton. And so Connor is now old enough to actually like experience it and not just, kind of be sat in the snow and be like, oh, you saw the snow. And when his little mind was blown, he absolutely like the squeals of delight and he would just live out there if he could. So it's been the total highlight of my week because he just absolutely loves it. Feels like he's on such an adventure and like, oh my gosh, it's the cutest thing. Cute. And like, of course, watching him eat the snow was like, it was just so cute, added bonus that like we all got sick and cold air is really good for your lungs. So I was like, it's healthy. It's like we're medicating or something. But total highlight. And also like, I don't know if you've ever seen a toddler in a snowsuit, highly recommend. Cutest thing.
Oh my God. Have you seen toddlers do karate?
Yes.
Oh my God. That is the cutest thing ever. Oh.
Yes.
Honestly, toddlers doing pretty much anything.
Yeah.
I
just
mean,
other
yeah,
than throwing a temper tantrum. Any way, shape, or form. And tell them to do things.
That's so cute. That's right. I mean, everybody had their polar vortex this week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Screw all that noise. I had to deal with like freezing temperatures. Not okay.
Yeah. I don't think the New Orleans people are
I went to Mardi Gras in a zip-up onesie twice.
I did see a video this morning of some guy showing that the swamp puppies were frozen into the swamp, and they instinctively like point their snouts up so that it freezes around them, but they can still breathe. But then the water's they're like frozen.
They just let themselves get frozen in.
Neutral.
Yeah, and then they thaw out.
Wow.
That is very dinosaur of them.
Right.
That's crazy. What about you, Biz? Other than Mardi Gras and a onesie, how's your week? What was your high?
I slept. I went to bed at 5:30 p.m. yesterday. Can we just talk about that?
Like jealousy is like just.
Wait, but what time did you wake up?
2. But
2 a.m.
Yeah, but I went back to bed.
Oh, okay.
And like I went back to bed at like 4 something until normal. And yeah, that's why I think I messaged you guys at like 3 a.m. Some really inspiring quote that I found at 3 a.m. You're welcome. Thanks for being my friends. Okay, thanks. Yeah, but real talk. I like text my husband. I was like, I kind of want to take a nap, but it's 5:30. And then the next thing I know, it's like 2 a.m. That was amazing.
That's so amazing.
It was great. Yeah. So that honestly, that and I guess I should talk about it, but I found out that I finished out the year as number 1 in my company this past week. Yeah. And honestly, what I'm most proud about that, and it kind of ties into this episode, so I don't want to necessarily segue over your good news, Ashleigh, but what I'm most proud of is I left my previous company in the number 1 spot, and then to come over in a year, like literally a day before my year anniversary, to receive that reward is what I want to say, because it is like a reward for all of my hard work.
Yeah.
To do that, I mean, it was really affirming to say that, and like powerful on a personal level. And I feel like it was the last little curve I needed to round to start hiring like crazy. And so I am very excited about all of the people that are coming, some of them coming back to my life, some people coming like around for the first time that are going to be joining forces. So very excited. It was a really good week. It was crazy busy, and then I got to sleep.
That's so amazing.
Thank you.
One of my favorite hobbies is to nod off like at 8 p.m., you know, just a little bit when you're not supposed to sleep. It's like one of my favorite things to do.
It's an appetizer.
A little
An appetizer. Oh my God. That's great. I'm gonna steal that. No, you know what it was? It was the Iron and Wine Spotify soundtrack.
Oh,
I figured that out. That is like some Zen space unlocking music to me. And who knew? Now I do.
Ashleigh, what's your high?
So, first I'll say that from the previous week, we obviously had our polar vortex here too. So I'm going to intertwine this with an apology to the listeners. If you hear any meowing, I am basically running a cat nonprofit in my basement where we're taking in all the feral street cats. Give me you're injured and you're hungry and you're pokey.
Bring out your dead.
So there's some strange looking cats in my podcasting room with me right now. So if you happen to hear meow, sorry. But we made it through the week.
Does it even meow? Does it meow?
Yes.
I can't wait to hear the sounds it makes. To be honest,
That's what I'm imagining too. It's like a meow.
Have you ever seen the videos of tigers chuffing? They make this like breathing chuffing sound.
No.
He does that.
I'm gonna imitate it because I'm here for that.
That's like the best tiger chuff. It is not right. The closest I can get.
I'm real sad that y'all didn't see that. The moment of am I gonna do this? And I feel like, fuck yes, I am.
The moment of commitment, you know?
Oh, I love you so much.
Yeah. That was my previous week, was pretty much doing that. And then it continues over to this week because I am weak. So that has been going on. But this is kind of all three of our news. And we're finally able to make it official on the podcast. But we are going live in person this week to interview the one and only Diana Kokoska. You don't know who Diana Kokoska is. You should. As a female entrepreneur, she obviously is huge in the Keller Williams world because she worked there for years and years and years, back when there were rules about how many women could work in a single real estate office.
Yeah.
Her story is amazing. She just released a new book, Becoming More, by Diana Kokoska. So we are going to be traveling to go see her and see Katie in person. We're going to be recording an episode for you guys. And we're literally dying.
We're freaking out. We're freaking out over it. We've been freaking out over it for a month. And trying to decide. In fact, I think Katie or Ashleigh almost dropped it a couple weeks ago. Made mention to it a little bit. Yeah. And I was like, oh shit, are we really doing that? And then it was this whole ass conversation of when we could say something. And we got on the calendar, and that's what it is. So it's real deal Lucille, real deal happening. It wasn't even when we booked our flights.
So true. We're buying flights, we're booking hotels, we're talking about what equipment do we need to record in person, since we always record these online since we all live in different places. This is gonna be your first time we'll record in person. So hopefully everything goes smoothly.
Part 2.
And we're just gonna be crying through the whole thing.
I know. It's just gonna be an hour of us all crying.
Diana's gonna be like, so in chapter 3 of my new book.
It's my new favorite.
No, we're super honored that she's taking the time to meet with us. It's a huge deal. She is the queen.
The real talk, and I love this about her book too. She has such a way of kicking your ass and hugging you at the same time.
Yeah.
She literally is the definition of tough love in my book, like in my book, and like reading hers. It's just like, you know, you instantly feel so seen and exposed. And at the same time, like, it's okay because we're going to fix it.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. It really is. I mean, she's amazing. She's like an entrepreneur, Brene Brown. I mean, truly, in my opinion.
Yeah.
With that, anyway. Oh God, I can't stop talking about her now. Ashleigh, what are we
I
talking
know.
about
I'm
today?
sorry. I'm sorry. It was one of those things, like, it literally hit me today that this week, I've never met her before. So this week I'm meeting Diana Kokoska, and you're like, oh my God, I've never been more excited for a Wednesday in my life.
I mean, also like added bonus that we get to see each other. Like I'm really pumped to like see y'all and hang out.
You want to know what my concern is? It's not really a concern. It's like, I don't know. I'm worried that the magic of being together to record is going to be addicting, and we're going to be like, oh, we should all just continue. Every week we're like, we need to go in person to record.
We can girl math my bottom unit downstairs and make it a recording studio.
Yes.
You know how some people do like content creation days where they bring a bunch of outfits and we can just like pick a week or something every quarter and just get together and record all the episodes. No, because I like seeing y'all every week.
I know, and that was like legit the reason we started, was to get to talk to each other more often on a regular basis.
And now we get to see each other. Oh God.
Okay.
Okay. What the fuck? So insane. Okay.
So now that you guys have a great taste of how literally amazing it's not going to drop next week, right, Katie? We're not going to drop the episode next week. So
yeah.
You will have to stay tuned. Unfortunately, you have to come and listen to us every week to see when Diana's interview is live. But this week, let's go ahead and get started talking about showing up even when it feels like you're failing. This, I think, rings so deeply with so many people. That feeling of like, I have this goal, I want to work towards it. I feel like I'm showing up and it's not working. Like, that's the hardest part. It's one thing when you can say, well, I didn't really try. And I think that might secretly be why a lot of us don't truly try, is it's always a get out of jail free card if you can say, well, I didn't hit my goal and I didn't try. So I don't know. I mean, like, Biz, can you recall a time in your life where like it just felt like nothing was working at all?
Yeah, real talk. This is a really great episode for me because I have it's so important for me to have these like buffers in place to track my progress with things, because I swing into oh shit, like, who am I kidding? And you know, I've sat with myself for a really long time and questioned whose voice that is in my head. That I'm listening to whenever I start to tell myself that I'm not good, because it's not my voice, right? It's not my voice. It's my voice that I hear it now, but it's not my words. And like, when I say I sat with myself with that, I mean like a long time, right? I don't think any little kid grows up thinking that they can't do something, right? No. I mean, like, that's terrible if they do. And let's you know, whatever. I'm sure there are kids out there that do. But anyway, point being is that it's somebody else's voice. And whenever I first left my first nest after 5 years of being in the business, I had someone caution my assistant that I took with me to not let me get too big for my britches. And that is a glass ceiling phrase that goes over my head all the time. So I heard that voice. But now that I can recognize it, it kind of shatters it every time. So that's one of the ways. But yeah, I mean, I get like that, honestly. Like, I have moments like that. I won't say weekly, but I'll definitely say at least once a month. I feel like I'm reaching too far.
Interesting. Yeah. That inner voice, sometimes it's multiple people, A lot of times it's probably our mother's voices. Sometimes it's bosses or friends that weren't really friends, to be honest. I don't know. What about you, Katie? Do you have like a specific time you can think back to where you felt like you were doing things, you felt like you were showing up, and then the results weren't there?
Yeah. I don't know if any of you recall my 2020 to my current. I'm just kidding. Yeah, like there's a really specific example that comes to mind. I was new-ish in real estate, and I was doing all of the things, like making my calls, going into the office, doing the things, and like I wasn't getting clients and I wasn't getting deals. And I just felt like my wheels were spinning, and I was like, maybe I'm not meant for this. All these people who are entrepreneurs and have these big ideas and visions, and they just come in and it all comes to them magically. And like, maybe I'm not that, like maybe I can go execute on somebody else's dream, but not my own. And it was just a very confusing thing.
You know, something crazy? How like, just to affirm that anybody could do this too. I was in therapy last week, and my freaking therapist told me that they had to do all of this, like that there's real studies shown that there's no difference between an entrepreneur's brain and somebody else's. It's just someone willing to put in the work and to hold themselves to like the commitment and their discipline. Discipline. That's the word I'm looking for.
Fascinating.
Discipline.
That is
fascinating. And it was so validating hearing my freaking therapist say it, because I was like, oh, anyway, there's
like what a weight off my shoulders
into my personal life. But no, but we talk about that, and sometimes I wonder if I'm in an echo chamber. Like if I just have created this happy little echo chamber with my friends and all of this stuff, and so whenever I see things in my quote unquote real life, outside of whatever chamber I'm talking about, that articulate back. So
what trick I started using with myself whenever I feel like I'm in an echo chamber? And this, I know Katie and Biz, you both kind of tease me like lovingly about being addicted to learning. But this applies to so many things. Like I'll be trying to learn about anything, and I always Google the opposite of what I think is true every single time, because I want to see the results that are going to argue against me. And if I can't reasonably argue against those, then I need to reevaluate what I'm thinking. So I love that. The opposite.
I feel like I do that, but I've never Googled. That's cool. I do that with Facebook groups. I make sure I join multiple ones of opposite sides of the spectrum. That's going to be interesting. Also, so if anybody Googles me, they can't think about what I do politically, because it's like a mess if you look at my groups.
Zigging and zagging.
Zigging and zagging. I don't know. I think about that stuff, man. Sometimes it's good camouflage to be all of it. I mean, we're
I think about that.
Sometimes facing forward, facing
comments pop up, like on a news article, and you can immediately tell what political affiliation they have, what religious affiliation they have. And I don't personally discriminate against people solely based on affiliation with things. But there are a lot of people in business who will. And so it's smart to consider what you're putting out into the world, and whether or not you stand by it enough to say, like, there are things, right? I'm like, look, if somebody's going to disagree with me on this and not want to do business with me, then that's how it is, baby. They were never going to like me anyway.
That's sad. Yeah. Politics aren't one of them, though. Not for me. So that's how I hide it.
Okay, so when you think back to those times in your lives, like I like the way Katie phrased it, the idea of like wheels are spinning, where you're showing up and you're failing, like just straight up honestly, you're showing up and you're failing. Like, how does that? This feels like a real therapy moment, but like literally, how does that affect you? Like, Katie, how does that translate to your life, your actions?
So I'm gonna bring you to a different one, because it's a little different, right? Like the one that I just talked about, I was doing all of the things, and I later learned I wasn't doing them. Like I didn't have a good purpose. There's a whole thing, whatever. At the beginning of COVID, I had just taken a new job, like 10 days before everything shut down. And I moved for this job, and then everything shut down, and I was trying to figure out life. I was going through a lot in my personal life at the time. Um, and I have been so excited about this job. It was I was like such a great match for it. And I knew what I needed to do, and I like could not make myself do it. I couldn't get it done, or I would try and fail. And it wasn't that I like was showing up and my wheels were spinning. My wheels were spinning on why I couldn't accomplish these things that I knew I could do. It was like such a weird, so I was just constantly like beating myself up. And so I lived with this, like, I don't typically say that I have anxiety, but I lived with this anxiety because I knew at any moment, like, somebody could call me and they would be calling me out because I did something wrong or I didn't do something that I should have done. My results weren't there. I was constantly beating myself up. I was confused about what was happening in life. And also, like, I've always been able to count on myself and the work that I produce. And so I felt like a stranger to myself, and it showed up everywhere in my life. Like, I was not as happy. I was not as confident. I was not as like motivated or determined. It was such a difficult thing. And it felt so like, so I don't even know the word for it, but I just didn't even recognize myself, you know?
That's like a whole other level of missing your goals and like not showing up. That like I've been there too, but that was not last Friday there. And so they're like two separate things. And that part, I think that's where I've referenced before a few times of feeling depressed and being unable to goal set. But it's like a loss of direction so bad, and knowing what you want and not being able to pick a place to run towards. For me, like the time I felt like I was failing on Friday, though I have like physiological responses to it. Like, you know, I get really sweaty. I actually lose my appetite where I can't eat. And thankfully, I know about this happy list that I have. And God bless my husband, y'all. I called him freaking out on Friday when I was having my moment. And I was like, who am I kidding? And like all this stuff, like holding my number one plaque. Like, you know,
here's the physical proof that I can do this and that I did it.
And now I can't do it anymore. It's only been 3 days. You know, kind of thing. But y'all, he was like, babe, gratitude. Hey. But I think that's because he listened to our podcast.
I freaking love that.
Yeah, but I do. So like, I mean, I think when I'm like really in the funk, it's those symptoms, but like spread out and like longer, right? Like, and so I lost weight because I wasn't eating for months because I was so, you know, lost.
Yeah. Same. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I lost weight. Oh, I've been going through it.
Yeah.
Hardly ever a symptom of something really good happening.
I know. That's why it's like awful. It's like, oh, you look great. I'm like, oh,
I feel terrible.
Yeah, but like, real talk, like I hate almost saying that though when someone comments on it, because I don't want to be part of like the trauma culture, like the pissing match of how bad you've got it. Like, I don't even want to have that conversation and be into it. So I just say thanks. But it does, you know, sometimes it's good to not compliment people too whenever you notice.
That's why I was telling my kids, I'm like, you know what? Biz, I think you mentioned this in another podcast where you taught your daughter.
You don't comment on things people can
if somebody can't change something, like you should compliment. And even though it's like meant to be a compliment, compliments are the same. You should do it on stuff that people can change, because that was like their conscientious choice, like their outfit, their shoes, all that stuff. Yeah, I would say for me, I honestly, I say it as a tongue-in-cheek, like joking thing. Like I was like, thanks, I feel terrible. Like I like to infuse humor with vulnerability because I think it helps people feel a little less uncomfortable with it. But I always joke and say I excel at failing. I feel like my entire trajectory of work has just been failure. And it sounds weird to say because it's like, okay, Ashleigh, like you've coached hundreds of agents, you've helped sell millions and millions of dollars worth of real estate, you have a track record of happy clients, you've spoken on stage at family reunion, and maybe part of it is like, I don't take enough time to recognize my accomplishments, and instead I hyper focus on the things that didn't happen or didn't pan out or whatever. And so I just always feel, I'm like, yeah, I had, $100 million year, but I went on 3 listing appointments that I didn't get.
Right.
and there was no reason I shouldn't have gotten them. Like,
So
like I legitimately still think about people that chose to sell out to Zillow back in like 2021 when that was a big thing. I still think about that.
Yeah.
I'm like,
girl, I kid you not, last night before I went to bed, I started thinking about this listing appointment that I went on. I haven't been in production for years. And I was thinking about how like this guy told me what he wanted to list his house at. And I was like, absolutely not. That's like $100,000 over where it should be. And there was like all this stuff. And I was like, no, like here's the pricing strategy. This is what we'll do, whatever. And then like 4 months later, he listed it with somebody else. And I didn't know this at the time because I didn't ask the right questions. He already had a buyer who was willing to pay that much cash. So he listed at the higher price and got it.
Oh, that's the type of fuck you I would do.
and so 4 years later, I'm still, before I go to sleep at night, thinking about this. I still remember the address, like just thinking about this. I'm like, man.
I have things like that though that haunt me too, where I'm like, but that's how you learn. That's how you fail forward, right?
For sure, yeah.
And that's like my new thing is that the question is more important than the answer. Dumbass. That's comma, but I shouldn't add the dumbass to my self-talk. I just realized that. That's what my self-talk is. I'm gonna change that.
Yeah.
It's okay if you were saying it to me.
No, I call myself dumbass.
Anytime you think dumbass, just replace it with Barbie.
Ooh.
Yeah. Done. Thanks, Ashleigh.
You're so welcome.
You're so welcome. Thanks, Barbie.
I'm watching that. I'm watching that in a couple weeks for the first time.
Are you seriously?
Yeah.
Are you not gonna watch it on Wednesday night on my laptop with us?
No, we're doing Galentine's for the cult that I started.
Super
Ezra
cute.
and I just watched it. I took Cassidy to the movie theater to see it, and I didn't think he would like it, so I didn't take him. And he was so mad at me. So I didn't take him out.
Oh,
I sat on the couch and we watched it together, and he cried during it.
Okay, so real talk. My new hire that's starting on 2/1 is my old SVP of sales. His name is Ken. He's gonna be my just Ken to my mortgage Barbie, and I already told him, and he loves it.
And your office is pink.
My first man, and he's gonna be my just Ken. I'm so excited. You guys. Yeah, okay. They're real talk. Okay, I hadn't told y'all that yet. That's live.
Maybe honestly, that's probably part of it. We just gotta channel our inner Barbie more when we're feeling like like when Barbie is sitting there. Okay, wait, no, I can't ruin anything. Katie hasn't seen it yet. Okay, nothing's happening. Anyway,
an entire box of Kleenex.
Yes,
February 16th. I will watch it,
and then we will talk more about it because I have some feelings about that. So what goes along with showing up even when you're failing is that first part of feeling like you're failing and having to go, what is not working here? Like, why is it not working? To then, how do you combat that feeling? Because that can put you in a really dark place where like, I've done the things I was supposed to do, or maybe I didn't, or I didn't do them well enough, but like, it's still just not working out. And I feel really low. I am having this critical inner self-talk. Like, it can turn into a spiral. So what are some of the things that you do to combat those feelings and pull yourself out?
So my answer is going to be the same as my answer for a lot of things, because anybody who knows me, I feel like knows my heating pad is like real messed up. My immediate response when something doesn't go well is, okay, what can I change? Like, what have I done? How did I handle this wrong? Right. Which is fine because it's good to review. And also when I get in that spiral, the people that I have in my life are everything, right? So I have people I can just ask, or, you know, they can help me along the way. Or people who I can just say like, "Hey, I'm having a hard time," and just let them encourage me some, or call me out with a solution.
I have like before I can even make the phone call stuff, because like my swings sometimes be real bad. Like real bad. And I don't even call Katie or Ashleigh or anybody. And I barely call my husband. Um, and that's whenever that happens to me, I switch into the Superwoman pose. I know
Oh
it's so
yeah.
stupid, but like it sounds so stupid because it's so simple.
Yeah.
But that's like a lot of things. It's simple, not easy, right? And so it's really hard when you're wanting to curl up in a ball, and sometimes you are in a ball, to unball yourself and stand up with your hands over your head. And that's what I do. I reach really high and then I bring them down to Superwoman pose.
But I think like what you just said is so important, the actual physical element of it, because like keeping your hands, there's a whole, I'll have to look it up. But
Yeah, there's a
thing
whole like thing behind it.
of
Yeah.
like unclenching your fists and like opening
In your
up your
jaw.
body and your
Mhm.
jaw, and it releases tension, but it's also like opening your body. It creates this positivity, like facing yourself towards the sun, you know. But like we hold all that tension and all that negativity, and we're literally holding on to it, and we have to let it go. So I love that you just made that reference. Also,
Yeah, Ashley, what about you? Do you have any like actual things you do like when you're really in the thick of it and like, oh God, this sucks. I suck. To get you out of that?
Have a margarita.
cheers.
Honestly, like no, sometimes it really is like little things that you're like, I don't drink often. And like last night, I don't know why, but I was in a little spirally, crumbly mood. And I was like, just go grab a beer out of the fridge. And not that I'm advocating for drinking to cope, but just having like some little ritual thing where like you just remind yourself like things are all fine. They're all
Yeah.
going to work out. Nothing is supposed to be perfectly worked out today or this second. We're all works in progress. Businesses are works in progress. Like you'll build up to the next peak of your business and it will come back down a few steps. And that's just life. So it's lots of little things like that. Or I don't know if you guys have seen on TikTok, there's this thing going around where it's like, if I was a therapist, I would tell people to just like, have we tried to go get a spray tan? Let's try that first. And it's like, it's jokey and obviously it doesn't actually solve any problems, but it's a little moment of self-care. It makes me, especially in the winter, I get I don't like the winter very much. So
Yeah.
it makes me kind of feel like summer or vacation is here. So that can help. But on a bigger scale that's more applicable, like to everything, it's writing down gratitude. That can really help. Oftentimes, when I'm focused on the failures, it's because I haven't been focusing on gratitude. And then, similar to Katie, having people. There are times that it's really hard to reach out to somebody because you have to sometimes be the one to be vulnerable first.
Yeah.
But just yesterday, I had a video go viral on Instagram, and the comments when you go viral are not always nice. And that is like easy to shrug off for me 95% of the time. But for some reason, I was going through and I was trying to delete ones that were like overly rude or overly like sometimes people come in and they'll just comment on your appearance and they try to be rude and tear you down. And the video has nothing to do with like my appearance. I'm not a model. I'm not modeling on Instagram. There's no reason to bring that in.
Right.
And it got to me for some reason. I don't know why, it just did. And I reached out to our good friend Patrick in Boston, who has had a ton of Instagram growth lately. So I knew he would at least, even if he doesn't share the exact same experience, he would at least have the empathy on it. And I was like, I just need you. I literally told him, I was like, I need you to remind me it's not just me that this happens to. And he was a great supporter in that. So thank you, Patrick, because I like was literally about to cry over stuff. And like, again, most of the time it doesn't get to me, but for some reason it just did. So that is super important.
I would like to make a blanket statement that if you left mean comments on Ashleigh's video, you are not our friend now.
You are not our friend now.
You can't sit with us. Okay.
You can't sit with us. This podcast does not apply to you.
The explicits are for you.
Dumbass.
Dumbass.
You guys have all seen Legally Blonde, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So anytime somebody says dumbass, that's all I hear is her voice. I'm taking the dog, dumbass.
Oh, so good.
Thank you so much. I love her.
Oh, I love you guys. My friends are so important. Friends are so important. They're so important. You got to talk to them. You gotta know them. You gotta have friends on your reminder list to text them because they might be freaking out and not knowing how to say they're freaking out.
Well, I think that's so important too. Like and this isn't me trying to say like, oh yeah, I do that. But like we have a couple group chats, right, that we're in, and there's always people who comment really frequently. And I had noticed that somebody had been kind of quiet for like a month. And I know we've had the holidays and a lot of stuff going on, but I just called them this morning and I was like, hey, like you've been really quiet. You aren't usually quiet. So you okay? You busy? Or are you like, what's going on? Everything good? And we just had like a really good talk. And that's it. It's like he's been really busy, but also going through a bunch of stuff that he didn't even really know how to verbalize to ask for help on any of it, you know? And so I just was like, okay, well, unload on me, you know, like just say whatever you need to. And you know,
sometimes like you bottle it up because you don't want to dump and bring other people down.
Oh
And
my
so
God, I'm so guilty of that.
Yeah, have somebody that says like, I'm here, I've got the capacity, dump away.
Oh my God, hang on. In fact, we need Katie, you and I just need to recreate that ass conversation that you and I had. You remember that? I called you and I was like, but you're always so good. And I'm always, every time I call you, I'm just shitting on your day. And then Katie goes, no, Biz. Are you kidding? I love when you call and shit on my day. Because drum roll.
Well, I mean, there's a couple things, but like, like part of it is like you give me the opportunity to be a good friend, which brings me a lot of joy. And I do have the capacity, and like it doesn't change my day. I get the opportunity to like be a good friend to you and bring some joy to you. And
which I thought was crap until it happened to me the other way around. And then I was like, oh my God, Katie is so smart. And then it really sunk in. Like
you didn't say that though. You called me and said you weren't lying.
That's right. That's right. It's because it's like, you're right. I didn't because of that, but that's like the real talk in my head though. I was like, that's how it works for Katie. That's not how it works for Biz. My brain doesn't work that way. And then it does happen. It did happen. It happened because somebody called me and I was in a bad mood. And I was like, no, I'm answering this call because this person is important to me. And if they're calling me, then they need me. And so I answered. And then I was like, oh, wow. And by the end of that call, I felt like such a great friend. And my attitude was turned around. Everything was turned around. And I was like, holy shit. This is what I do to Katie all the time. Like every single time I call her, this is what I do. Like, this is why she thinks I'm a good friend, because like she gets to be a good friend whenever, like every time I call, like, of course. And it just made this, it was like this biggest aha moment for me all the way around, that had I not had that really vulnerable moment with Katie, because like in that she kept saying, well, no, this. And I was like, well, you're just saying that. You're just saying that. And, you know, and she was like, well, if I'm your friend, would I lie to you? And I'm like, would you lie to me? And I'm like, no, maybe a little, but only with cookies, you know, and all that stuff. So thanks for being patient with me. And Ashleigh, you too, because I think you've been trying to say something for approximately 8 seconds.
I know. I was trying to say that you said like that's how Katie's brain works and not mine. That's the story you were telling yourself. And that just reminded me of when you said that your therapist said that scientifically there's no difference between like an entrepreneur's brain and somebody who's busy saying like, oh, I can't do that because like XYZ, they're different, they're wired different. And I'm guilty of that. I have totally been like, oh, I am just not that person. I'm not like, I need my sleep. Okay. I'm not the person that's going to stay up until freaking midnight and get up at 4 a.m. and have the energy to work. Like I love naps. And so I've always put that in my brain as like those people who say those things, at least, obviously it's not always what they're actually doing. They're just wired differently. And like, obviously setting aside real diagnosed medical differences in your brain that you are seeking treatment for or seeking accommodations to work through, that's different. But the overall theme is that you're just capable of so much more than you give yourself credit for.
Yeah.
And when you're feeling like you're not accomplishing your goals, it's important to like know what you're moving forward to. Like you're failing it. Even when you're failing, you're still like moving towards it. And like that right there is ultimately where my brain gets to, and I can pull myself out of it. But until I get to that point and I can get back on the redirection, it's like, okay, now this is the next right thing to do. And then you go and you do it and you realize that like the failure moment that you're sitting in is really just part of your success. Right.
That's
so
such
thank
a
you,
good
Kids Book.
point.
But
That's such a good point, because when I know people are going to get sick of hearing me say this, but when you know your mission and you know what you're working for or towards or what your purpose is, failure is almost easier to cope with because it can still play into the bigger picture. Whereas like when your whole life depends on each win making the entire like meaning of your life, one failure is devastating.
Yeah.
It's easy to redirect when like you know where you're going.
See, everybody always likes to tease me about my license plates, but like the what I want, when I want, that stands for, I swear to God, there's so many more layers to that than the surface level that people go at. But it's such a freaking reminder every day that I get into that car. Well, I don't even get into it anymore. Sad day. But it's such a freaking reminder that and like the gratitude bits, sometimes like I can get overwhelmed by like the fact that I live in New Orleans, even though that's such a gratitude thing because it's so freaking expensive here and it's so much pressure all the time that it's hard. It's hard. And that's where like we were talking about community earlier and how important it is to have like real friends versus deal friends, right?
Yeah.
And all the above, like even if you just got one person, man, you got to have that one person that you can call when you're like in the pits and they're like, hey girl, what's up? Because sometimes even that can be enough to snap somebody out of it and back on track. Like just knowing that like however crappy the reality is, feelings are not facts.
Yeah. That's such a
and
good one.
Nothing lasts forever either. Yeah. Feelings are not facts and it won't last forever. And the only way out is through.
I think that's
those
such
are.
a big one.
I even had to recall those in a while. Yeah, that used to be my mantra. Is affirmations and stuff. Yeah, sorry.
I think that's such a big one. Like, because so I've talked about this a lot. That like I'm a recovering perfectionist, right? Like failure used to scare me more than anything else. And so showing up when I'm failing, knowing that other people can see that I'm failing, right? Like you're publicly failing. And like choosing to not hide from that or show up or ask for help or stand up and say, yep, I failed and here's how I'm going to do better or whatever. The only way out is through. It's like such a big one. And it's the scariest freaking thing ever to take that first stand or even to just like sit in front of another person and accept the reality that you failed or you're failing or whatever. But that's such a good one for that, Biz.
It is. Yeah. It's one of my favorite ones. For sure.
Feelings are not facts.
Speaking of community, so obviously we've talked about how important it is. Truly having community and having support is a great antidote. Having people around you that know your mission as well. Like Biz was saying, where her husband was like, just say your gratitude. Like
Yeah.
people that can know and identify, because there's, when you say real friends versus deal friends, a deal friend would be like, yeah, that sucks. You should probably just quit since they don't appreciate you at your job.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and like, I get it, girl. Like, sometimes that's the advice I want to give myself too.
Mhm.
But that's not always the most conducive to our goals. You know, like burn it all down every single week because it's hard isn't really the answer. So, how did, like, I know we've touched on this some, but how did you find these different communities? How did you figure out which group chats or which people were the right ones to reach out to say, I'm in the weeds right now and things suck and I need to cry about it?
For me personally, there's a lot of people who openly share what their failure has taught them or where it's going, or they raise their hand for help. Not in a way of like they don't try first, you know, and they just, oh, this is hard. I need someone to do it for me. But the people who are like, here's something I'm working on. I need a solution. Can anybody talk through this with me? And that makes me feel safe from judgment because they are also working through that or working through something and publicly failing. Um, and then, you know, there's that quote about like people won't remember what you say or what you did, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that there's also just people who you get that feeling with, right? I don't know that there's necessarily something like a quality that you can quantify, but there's people that you just know that it's okay to talk to them.
Yeah. What about you, Beth?
I go to Facebook. I think so. Like, this is kind of a fun fact about me, but I actually was a really intense computer gamer for like 15 years of my life. And so I have learned how to foster like meaningful relationships online only for a really long time. And so Facebook, and whenever they came out with community groups, is like my favorite thing in the entire world. I'm also in a lot of weird groups. Okay. um, so my most
Because of
recent
like hobbies.
yeah, well, both. So like I'm in a
Okay.
lot. Like when I was in researching stained glass, I joined a lot of stained glass groups because I wanted to learn about it just for like, you know, being a fly on the wall. And I posted a piece that I'm working on, and all of these older people came out of the woodwork and like gave me all of the support and
Oh,
like real like honest like tips and stuff. And it's like kind of silly, like we were talking about like goals and things, but it was such a goal of mine to
yeah.
find this creative outlet and something that I enjoy, because my therapist tells me that the secret to being happy is to do things that make you happy. And so, you know, I had to figure out what that was. I had to figure out who those people were. I had to do all of those things. And so, like, you know, it's not a goal tied to any type of monetary, you know, motivator in my life. But as far as like Biz being happier and finding a community, I mean, these are a bunch of people that I would probably never go up to and speak to in the grocery store. Besides, you know, let me get that for you, you know, sir, kind of thing. And so like Facebook is great. Like, I mean, it really is. And people are wonderful. Like people are wonderful. People are out there looking for community as much as you are. And
Yeah.
so I love that like Ashleigh asked us like where we go to get it. And Katie's like, well, it's all around. I just like pick which community I want to respond to and interact with, essentially. And like, you know, what I'm saying is I think everybody has access to social media too. So maybe like step outside of what you think would be your normal and try to find like ripples, because like kind of like I was saying, it was so affirming for my therapist earlier, but like it was affirming in that group because I called it creative sacrifice. And this gentleman corrected me and said, no, it's creative freedom. And I was like, man,
Mm.
like, you're right, bro. Like, change the way you look at things. The things you look at change. Thanks, Diana Kokoska. Like, you know, but it was just so cool to like see that ripple like all the way through. So yeah, so it's all out there. Community is there. You just gotta just, you know, search
But I
for
think
it.
that brings up such a good point of you have to be so careful about what your surroundings are, right?
Yeah.
So like if you follow people or things or whatever on social media that are negative or dark or not helpful or drama filled, then when you go to escape by scrolling on your phone, it's going to feed that. Or people who put on a front, right? It's going to feed that portion of you that feels like a failure. Whereas if it's people who are entrepreneurs talking about failure, talking about winning, talking about the struggle, your friends, people posting positive things, things that make you happy, things that you're interested in, like hobbies, it's totally different. Then you can go to that and allow it to remind you of who you are instead of like deepening those feelings of failure and solitude.
Totally. I think that is super important. Obviously, we all know like social media can be a highlight reel, and a lot of us are mindful of that. But I don't think a lot of us remember how you have to balance what you're consuming and what people you're surrounding yourself with in terms of just like your general mindset. There's a lot of stuff like, you know, around how unfair a lot of the systems that we're currently operating within are. And it's a lot of it's very, very true. It's not a highlight reel. It's not fake. It's, you know, it's harsh realities. And I like to be an informed person. But also at the end of the day, if every time I get on social media and scroll, it's about how you can't succeed because the system's rigged against you.
Yeah.
Guess what? I'm not even going to try.
Right. Right.
I need some blind optimists.
Yeah.
Some drunk girl enthusiasm.
Yes, some drunk girl enthusiasm. Some people who go, the system is broken and the system is imperfect, and I'm still going to get up and try.
So what? Now what?
Yeah.
Barbie.
So what? Now what? Not, you know, I'm not going to wait around for the system to be perfect. Like it never will be. So
yeah,
that's yeah. I mean, in general, I think finding your community, it sounds like this big ambiguous idea that's like impossible to do. But at the end of the day, I think if you just put yourself in the way of other people, you'll find the right people. I'm sorry, the cats are cuddling in. It's really cute. I've never seen that. No, so put yourself in the way of people. I mean, in any way possible with your hobbies. I've honestly made friends with people from Facebook Marketplace, going and buying something from them, and we ended up becoming friends because we chatted and we had a similar interest. Obviously, you can bond with people over little things.
Yeah. And I like part of that too, though, is understanding what you want, right? So allowing yourself the time to reflect and figure out what you want. And like, even if you're in a moment of failure, okay, well, does it matter? Is that failure on the way to something you actually want, or is it some ambiguous
failure that
goal?
should have happened to shut the door anyway?
Yeah, yeah. Or like,
and like you could change the way you look at it because it's always going to be, man, F is for failures. They are part of our success. Thank you, Laura Daly.
Yes.
yeah.
And children's.
Sweet. Well, thank you guys for sharing. I mean, it's honestly so vulnerable to talk about failure, even though it's starting to become a little bit more normalized. I feel like people still mask it in this like, oh, once upon a time I failed one singular time, and then everything's been roses and daisies since. And it's so refreshing to me to be around people that are willing to say, like, I was in it, 2 days ago. For whatever reason, whether it was a real or not. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you for sharing. And thank you, the listener today. Don't forget to rate us, review us, subscribe to us on all your favorite platforms so you do not miss Mrs. Diana Kokoska when we air that episode. Thank y'all. We will see you next week.